We are live. Nick Walker here on Change Everything Live with your host, Andre Bailey. I'm supposed to look in the camera and say that, but I feel very self-esteem deficient when I do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hello, everyone. Please like me a lot.
Yeah.
So I can't
No,
really do
we're
that.
here.
We're here in the zone.
Yeah.
Nick Walker, Aaron Burr in studio
That's
today.
what they tell me.
From the cast of Hamilton, the touring cast of Hamilton. Hey, thanks for coming on,
Thank
man.
you for having me, man. Seriously, pleasure to be
you've come
here.
a long way to be on the show, but we are so excited to have you. So let's just get right into it. What's it like being the man, Aaron Burr, in this? What is a cultural phenomenon, Hamilton? This show that really has redefined maybe Broadway and in the genre. What's it like playing this character?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's the kind of thing that you just have to. I was actually talking on the way here in the car. I think that for so many of us in the arts, whether that be TV, film, stage, whatever it is, you get to a place where you realize that auditioning is your job, right? It's so rare that you're going to have a show that, number one, hits this hard, will last this long, even whether that's a theater show like this or a TV show, whatever it is. So to kind of have hit the trifecta of a show that hits this hard, lasts this long, and is really good, and this role, which I can say as somebody who, I understudied the role for about a year and a half on Broadway, and then now I'm doing the role on the road. It still is challenging. It is still every day that you do it. It's just like, oh my God, I don't know where it's going to come from, because it's just you're going a lot of places with it.
So what was the genesis of you with this project with Lin, with the people around Lin-Manuel? How did you? Because you talk about it as though you've been around this production for years. How did you get connected with Hamilton, and how did you wind up now in the position of playing what a lot of people would say is the lead, even if it's not the lead character, the ultimate protagonist, if you will, of the show. How did you get to a place where? What's your journey to Aaron Burr?
Started years ago, so you have to understand. I think that one of the misconceptions about Broadway is that because these shows are, every year you have a new season, so kind of people who aren't in that, who aren't on the ground floor of it, kind of assume that, they put these shows up in a year, 2 years, you just write it. Just like Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan literally had this thing charted out when he was writing the X-Files, right? It takes
Like a decade.
Like a decade ago. And this show took 8 years for Lin to write. So he was, it started as an album, right? He at first was writing it as an album, and then the thing with the Kennedy Center happened, and he showed, and they were like, well, let's see if we can make this really a show, and really, and what ended up happening was they first started as, I'm sure people who know the show will know, as the Hamilton Mixtape. And the Hamilton Mixtape was the title that the show had when it was down at the Public Theater, off Broadway in New York. And so I was auditioning for it back in workshops.
When it was the mixtape.
When it was the mixtape. And I remember, I went in for it, golly, 3 times. At first, I auditioned with the King's songs, King George, and then it was Washington's songs, and then I think I sang Dear Theodosia, and nothing ever happened with it. And I remember just keep going in, and a bunch of my friends, because you understand, the Broadway community is a small community. We all know each other. We're all, we all came up together. So a bunch of my friends started booking it. And I would hear stuff about it here and there, like, oh yeah, we were trying this thing out in the lab today, and I don't know what's, and I'd be like, oh, it sounds amazing, and the material always sounded amazing, but you have to understand, I didn't think about it. I wasn't like, oh, Hamilton's going to be this big thing. I was just like, okay, it's a thing, and I've auditioned for it, and they clearly is not going to work out for me. And I went away. I was doing Motown on Broadway at the time, and I went away. We closed Motown on Broadway after 3 years, and then I went away to Denver to do a play out there, which is one of my favorite plays I've ever done. And all of a sudden, I'm out there, and literally 2 weeks before I left for Denver, my buddy Oak, who originated the role of Mulligan Madison, we had gone out for sushi on 46th Street, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, man, we're running at the Public. I don't know how this thing's gonna go. We'll see. And I was like, dude, and I said to him what I say to everyone. I was like, dude, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. These jobs come and go. You're fine. Go to Denver. Literally 3 weeks into rehearsal, my director opens up the front page of New York Times. It's just Oak's face, just right there. And I literally was like, son of a.
He was Hercules Mulligan.
He was Hercules Mulligan.
In the original show.
Cast. Yeah. And this, I mean, this thing had blown up. And it was huge. It was huge. There was no denying it was huge. And, we talked about, wanting to be a hater at first. I hated it. Because it was literally like all, in a very Aaron Burr fashion, all my boys were in this thing. And I was like, okay, so now I got to deal with this. I literally remember writing journal entries.
You literally were not in the room where it happened.
I was not in the room. And I remember writing journal entries of, oh my God, I have to go back to New York. I have to see all their faces everywhere, doing all the award shows and all this bull. And I hated it. I was not a fan. And it was literally just envy, just pettiness. And I remember what changed it for me, the thing, because they kept calling me into audition, like for the first year of the run on Broadway. And I was like, I'm not going to get it. But what changed it for me was I had a friend who was in my show was in Motown with me when I went back, because we did Motown twice on Broadway. That was a whole thing. And he was like, I was like, dude, they keep calling me in for this hip hop show. I'm not a hip hop guy. I grew up listening to the Stones. It's just not my music. And he was like, well, I know you don't like hip hop, but it's just heightened verse. It's just Shakespeare. And I was a Shakespeare major. And all of a sudden it clicked for me. I was like, well, I know that. And so then I went in and I booked it.
So I got a chance to watch the show here in Orlando. We film here in Orlando for those watching in other markets. And I wanted to be a hater. I hadn't seen the show. I hadn't listened to the soundtrack. Unbelievable. And as someone who's not a Broadway guy, what I'm sitting there thinking the entire time, and maybe I'm just weird, is how do you remember those lines perfectly every show without missing a beat? Is that hard at all? Do you ever, even knowing it like the back of your hand, is there ever a moment where it doesn't click, or is it like second nature?
I'm going to give you a little secret. If you go on your Instagram, even if you were to go on right now and check the hashtag Burr's Corner.
Okay.
Burr's Corner was started by Brandon, and it is the hashtag that we use to record every time we don't remember a line or something messes up.
Ad-lib?
Well, the thing is with this, in a normal play or musical, even on set, you forget a line, maybe you can kind of fake your way through that line because, it's just a line. Nothing's in meter. But in this show, everything is musical. Everything is rap. So if I forget the line, the music's still going. So it's not only about remembering the line, it's now I got to catch up to the line that's 5 lines ahead of me. So we call it going into the white. It actually happened. I'm not going to call anyone out, but it happened yesterday. One of our actors, literally during one of the bigger songs, my shot in the show, forgot an entire passage of text. And we all feel so bad because we've all been there, and there's nothing you can do to help him. So he's just got to stand there and be like,
he's got to wait.
He's got to wait.
He's got to.
Yeah, or just try to remember it.
But you can't go halfway in. You can't. You have to. You have to
reset.
Cut and recut,
and that's it. But it's live, so we can't cut nothing. So like you just kind of go. You just kind of go. It happens
well, I mean,
all the time.
you can't be like, you can't bust in later if it's not in that particular sequence.
You just gotta for the ride, man.
Let's
just no, and like I've just stood. When it happens to me, I just stand there. I just say, okay, great, and then I wait, and then it will eventually come. But like what I've learned to do with this show, I say all my lines every time before I go on stage.
Okay, so you'll be in the back. Your preparation is you'll be in the back, and you'll Mr. Aaron Burr, sir, and you'll go through the whole thing. Now, do you as someone who has to do speeches at times? Do you think about, so the guy ahead of you is doing his line, you're coming.
Yeah.
At that point, are you still thinking about your line, or you're out, now you're just in the performance?
I think one of the things about acting that is so spectacular is at a certain point, it's a tennis match, right? At a certain point, you're not worried about the lines, you're just talking. And that's kind of like the golden period that you hope to get to. You hope to get to that place where you're just like, I'm not performing with you. I'm just like, it's that classic thing of, I forget what movie it was. Dustin Hoffman did with, I think it was like, might have been Laurence Olivier or some older actor of esteem, and Dustin Hoffman was like doing all this prep and all this like amazing like journaling work and like really learning how to get into his character and like bleeding for this character and all this stuff. And he shows up on set, and whoever this older actor was like looking at Dustin Hoffman, who's young at the time, and was like sweaty and like gross and just had clearly beat himself up for it. And he's like, it's just acting, man. You just show up. You just show up and do the thing. And like, it's the truth of it. What we're hoping to do is just be there. It's literally just about being present. So my favorite moments, I was telling you, Joseph, who plays Hamilton, is over this past year, we've become like brothers. And it's honestly like playing with a jazz musician. I know him. I know his rhythms. I know he's going to throw, and we can play. We can try different things. We can just keep it fresh because we're doing this for this is our 9 to 5 now. So how do we make this feel new for every audience who comes in?
So you were around Lin-Manuel Miranda and the team from the very beginning. You saw it go from this kind of Broadway phenomenon, insider group, where everyone was going, this is going to be something, to a national, international cultural phenomenon. What is Lin-Manuel Miranda like to be around, to work around? What's he like?
Lin, so I would say that, because I joined them right when Lin was like he had just left the Broadway company, and my friend Javi had just taken over for Lin. Javi was Lin's understudy.
Okay.
Lin is, I think the beauty of Lin is like exactly what you see in interviews is exactly who he is. He's a genius. Lin is incredibly smart. He is a pop culture nerd, as am I, as are most people involved in this show. But like he knows, and it shows in the show, the amount of references to not only musical theater, but just hip hop, life, are just, there's so many Easter eggs hidden in the show. It's not even funny. And that's Lin. His brain is just, and it actually speaks to the entire team. I think one of the things that I found, I told Jeffrey this, our producer, I told him that I think is so interesting is being around the show for as long as I have, you realize that as much as it's about Alexander Hamilton, it's actually about this team as well. Because it's just, the show is just about the process of creation.
So the song, for example, the story of tonight, where it's the camaraderie of these young men who have this sense that they're working on something, the America Project, that people will talk about one day. This was Lin. This was Tommy.
Everyone.
All of them working on Hamilton all these years. This was them in a bar in Soho saying they're going to tell the story one day of how we worked on this.
Absolutely. You can see it. And when they come and talk, when they come and give notes to you, you see it. You're like, oh my God, this is you. This show is you. And that's what's beautiful is they've found a way to make the personal universal. Right, all of a sudden, this story that's very personal to them has become something that impacts, millions of people.
So Lin says, I saw this in an interview. Didn't tell me this personally on the phone earlier, but he says that he liked the Aaron Burr role more. That when he was working on, the final touches of we got to go live. Which character should I be? I wrote this. I get to decide.
Yeah.
He was like, I like Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr's got the best musical pieces. So the Aaron Burr role won the Tony.
Yep.
And so you got what is the best role in some people's eyes and the role with the most pressure on it, because you have to. What I loved about watching you perform in Orlando is that you have to embody the essence of what it's like to succeed. The American success story is Hamilton in a sense. Aaron Burr represents the American story of failure on the grandest stage. So you had to embody that in every movement, in every song. Is there pressure when you have to do that?
It's not pressure. It's I think when I had an acting teacher once who told me when I got to like our final, in acting school, generally what happens is you spend 2-3 years and you go to, I went to NYU, so it was a different, you'd study at different acting studios, and then you have your final presentation for your teachers, and they, give you advice or tell you how tell you what to work on for the future. And acting is it's a process that will never be over. You will never stop learning your craft of acting because there's always something else to learn. But my teacher, I will never forget, he said to me, he was like, hey, so you're going to be a great actor. I want you to know that. but I also want you to know that eventually this is going to cost you something. What you do costs. And playing Aaron Burr, you come. I mean, playing Hamilton too, but definitely playing Burr. You come face to face with the cost of all this, because truth of the matter is, I spend 3 hours a day plumbing the most insecure depths of my soul, and like putting that out for the people, and like it's not like a big dramatic thing. It just means my cool down coming off of work at the end of the day has to be really specific and really protective of myself. You learn very quickly how to love yourself. You have to.
So I have something funny to tell you.
Uh-oh.
We're preparing for the show, and I go on and I start Googling you.
Yeah.
Your Google, when your photo comes up,
Liz Walker's son.
it says Nick Walker,
Yeah.
Liz Walker's son.
Absolutely.
So tell me about Liz Walker. Your mom
bro.
must be a baller in Boston.
She was the first black news anchor in New England, primetime news anchor. She's now a minister.
I saw that.
She has had, I mean, literally, my mom is my hero. She has had quite a life and done a great many things. Built a school in Sudan. Countless charity work, trauma work. I mean, she's the real deal. I think the biggest thing that I'd say about my mom is that my mom is someone for whom service and selflessness are priority number one. Giving of yourself and serving your community is baseline for her. That's like, and to the point where I'm like right now she's on sabbatical. She's like actually somewhere in Florida, and I'm so happy because I'm like, if anybody asks her to do anything in Boston, she will say yes, because that's my mom. And I'm just like, I love that right now you're just saying no, like you're just with yourself, because she has given everything of herself.
Now, what's it like growing up in a home with faith and religion, probably at a level that she had it? Was she someone who said, listen, faith's an important part of my life, but you do what you want? Or was she someone like, your ass going to be in church every Sunday, 8 a.m.?
Brought me to church, okay. But I think, again, one of the things that she did, and even if it wasn't something she wanted to do, was to say, you need to know enough to know you have to find your own way.
Yeah.
You have to figure this out. I think one of the things that's hard for her, or that was hard for her at the time, my wife is an atheist. Like complete, unabashed, and proud of it, and she would probably call herself a humanist, and my mom was immediately, I think, a little nervous about, well, how does that impact you with what you believe? And I was like, well, what I believe and what Sarah believes, the principles are the same in terms of the just human decency and treating everybody equally and being kind. That is what, the source might be different. Might be very different, but it really hasn't been an issue for us. And I think that it took her a second, and I'm sure it still works through it, but I think that's just human. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, faith is such a interesting topic nowadays, because probably in the 80s, faith in 90s was more prolific in America, in our country.
Yeah.
Now faith is something that's almost taboo to talk about.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting because faith, even whether or not you share the exact same faith as your mom today, it had this incredible force in your life.
Absolutely.
You see it in the man that you've become.
Yeah.
So what do you think about, it's kind of an odd question, what do you think about how almost polarizing faith has become in our society?
Well, I think
softball question, easy one.
Right, here we go.
Solve religion in America.
We're in.
You know.
Here's what I will say, because I will use my own experiences. When I first started dating my now wife, I knew right away that if I got in this relationship, this was going to be it. Like it was like, okay, this is. And she said, I mean, I'll never forget. She was like, "Listen, if you mess this up, you would be an idiot."
I was
like, "Yep, that tells me everything." But when I learned what her beliefs were, it definitely was like, oh my God. And then I realized, because I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I think everyone should have someone to talk to, just to get all this stuff out of your head. And through journaling and through all my stuff, I was just like, animosity towards, or my defensiveness about what she believes has little to do with what she actually believes and more to do with what her opinion of me is. What does that mean for me? Okay, so do you think I'm dumb? Do you think I'm ignorant because I believe in God? And she doesn't, because she's with me. So I think that in terms of the polarization of anything, I think that what ends up happening is somebody says who they are, and then all of a sudden you have to become affected by it. Because, well, but it's about me, but it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, we can't sometimes get along with differing beliefs, because what you're saying is we become insecure about our own beliefs.
Yes.
So yeah, my background, I did not grow up religious at all. I grew up with two ex-hippies who didn't raise me in any religion. I had that grandmother that would like pull me in the back room, be like, "Watch this guy on TV. He's going to tell you how to live a perfect life." So I then, when I got out of high school, found faith. But now faith is incredibly important to me.
Yeah.
And very non-traditional at the same time. But I'll tell you, it's that same challenge in society, where how do you find a way to be comfortable with what you believe, but allow others to be who they are, and try to look past those barriers to building, a real relationship with someone. I think that's tough. We live in a very polarized world. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's like political stuff going on.
I have in fact noticed some
you've been
weird
busy.
things. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
But I think you are right on. You gotta be okay with you.
Yes.
Enough to be okay with someone who's different than you.
It's, you know what? It's my favorite thing is the airplane metaphor. When you go on the airplane and the stewardess, the flight attendants, like, make sure you secure your own oxygen mask before you help the child next to you. And that really is the key. Deal with yourself before you worry about anything. Are you good? Because if you're good, then they can believe whatever they want to do, because it's not you.
The story of Alexander Hamilton, the founding father, was him and his friends, and those he worked with, who put the work and the sacrifice in to start a nation that we all now at times even take for granted what we have.
And rolled the dice. You know, one of my favorite things about the show, if you look at our set, did you ever read anything about what our set is?
I did not.
So one of the beautiful things about our set is it kind of looks like a construction site, right? It's an unfinished building. That's the idea behind the set. It's work. There's piles of bricks over here. There's scaffolding everywhere. There's towers that aren't quite completed yet. That's what they were doing. They literally were building something that, like, and the idea is like, the idea for our set designer, he often talks about how this would be whatever the building is that's being built. This was the ground floor. This wasn't even like the actual building. This was just the foundation of the building, right? So they're not even going to see what the actual building is. It's just the first floor of this building.
What is a legacy? Like a legacy, I won't get this right, is planting seeds in a garden you'll never see.
Yeah, you got it right.
Again, I see now, in talking to you, this incredible contrast of these founding fathers and Lin-Manuel and his team kind of saying to the world around them, this country came from people who worked and sacrificed to now, give us this great nation. But your life can be that as well if you're willing to sacrifice and work and plant seeds and write like it's going out of time, or sing, or do your sport. Is that kind of the motivation of Hamilton?
Exactly. And I think actually also the biggest motivation too is to remember that life is short. Because I think that the biggest, right, the difference between Hamilton and Burr, right, both of these men start the show at a breakneck speed, and even though Burr is waiting for it, right, it's a song he sings, they're both people who are working to build something. But then what happens to Hamilton in the second act? His son dies. And all of a sudden, he has to realize, okay, there are actually things that are important in life. And what I think that Hamilton, there's a Shakespearean saying that as soon as a character gets the lesson they're supposed to learn, they die. And the concept of our show, right, as soon as Hamilton learns that, yes, you can build and build and build, but you also have to know the important thing, your daughters, the things in life that are, like, important, you got to balance, right? So you have your time for work, but there's also time to take a break. There's also time to just be It's just all it all comes down to is just about the gift that my wife gave me. That I will, my mom gave me a gift, my wife gave me a gift, and that gift was an understanding that, like, my God, there will always be more work to do, always. So, like, if you get a chance to just sit and enjoy a glass of wine, enjoy that glass of wine.
She's Eliza. She's Eliza in you.
Oh, absolutely. She is the one who said, "Yo, stop." Just because my mind was always racing. My mind was always like 10 steps ahead, and she was like, "No, just be here."
Well, as men, and Alex telling me we got to wrap up in just a few minutes. I will say, as men, I think we sometimes, I don't know why this is, but we can fall into that Hamilton trap of feeling like we are judged by our accomplishments.
Yes.
I know it can happen to women as well, but as I think men are hardwired in a way in their biology to see their self-esteem through what they write, through their positions.
Yes.
Through, am I going to make it as Aaron Burr in the next show? And it's a curse that we have.
Yes.
It helps drive our species forward, and it helps us accomplish things that benefit those around us. But if we're not careful, I think one of the parts of Hamilton, the story of Alexander Hamilton as told by Lin-Manuel Miranda and the other team members, is, hey, listen, this man was one of the founders of America, but look at the price at times he paid when his motives were not for those outside of him, but for himself. The moments where Hamilton gave into his insecurities, where he gave into that voice that said, if you don't make yourself successful or have a position, you're not going to be anybody. Those were the moments where he had the greatest failures.
Yes.
And the moments when he remembered where he was from.
Yes.
And he remembered what he could do that history would remember him. That's what made him great. So Nick Walker, you can find him. What's your social media?
So it's all over. It's Nicky Walks. So NIKKYWALKS.
And we'll put all your Twitter, Instagram, all that in the show. Nick Walker, who is playing Aaron Burr right now around America. Check him out. Follow him on social media. Again, if you missed part of this show because it's only 28 minutes and 30 seconds, that's because the entire interview is on YouTube Live and on iTunes, Apple iTunes. But Nick, thanks for coming in, man.
No,
you are the man.
No,
and,
dude, it's a pleasure.
We loved having you in. Thank you so much. We see Hamilton. Check it out. If you haven't, it is the bomb. And we'll see you soon. Thank you. We're out.
Peace.